Beyond numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. In this lesson, we are looking at the zero and then undefined algebraic fractions. I'll take you through what it means. Then we'll look at when an algebraic fraction was zero, then when it is undefined. Then we'll solve the combined exam style examples. Take your notepad and then your pen. Let's learn along. And let's learn together. Now, depending on the value you put in the variables, that is in the numerator or the denominator, an algebraic fraction can have three possible states. So you can evaluate by substitution and then your final answer becomes a real value. Or you can evaluate and then your final answer becomes the zero. That is, if the numerator is zero. But if you are not lucky and then the denominator becomes zero, then it is an undefined value. So we'll look at all these three states. More importantly, we'll look at the value of zero and then the undefined value. So with that in mind, when do we say an algebraic fraction equals zero? The algebraic fraction is equal to zero if the numerator is zero and the denominator is not equal to zero. So what I mean is, if you have an algebraic fraction such as a over b. Now, if a is equal to 0 and then b is not equal to 0, then we say your algebraic fraction is 0. So substituting, we say 0 over b. And we know 0 over any number is equal to 0. Most importantly, the denominator should not be equal to 0. If the denominator is equal to 0, then we are talking about a different thing. Let's look at some examples under this. To understand what it means to find the zero, let's solve these questions we have over here. So the very first one says, find the zeros of the following algebraic fractions. The first one says x over 7. You see. So for x over 7, we know that for zeros of an algebraic fraction, then it simply implies our numerator. And in this case, our numerator is just x. So x is equal to 0. And that is all. That is all. There is nothing to solve. You see. So for the first one, our algebraic fraction is 0 if x is equal to 0. And you can test to see. It was x over 7. Now substituting for x equals 0. That is, if f of x is a function, and then want to find f of 0, then we are going to get a 0 over 7. And we know 0 over any number is still 0. Let's look at the second one. So for the second one, we have 2x minus 6 over x plus 1. So for the zeros, then we'd have to equate the numerator, which is 2x minus 6 to be equal to 0. If that is the case, then we have formed an equation. We'll need to make x the subject. So if 2x minus 6 is equal to 0 and we want to make x the subject, then we move negative 6 to the other side so that it becomes 2x equals 6. Because it is negative, if it moves to the other side, it becomes a positive. Making x the subject, we are going to divide both sides by 2. The 2 cancels out 2. We have our x being equal to 6 over 2 gives us a 3. Now you can test and see whether or not it is really a 0 of the function. So if we have our f of x being 2x minus 6 all over x plus 1, Then for x of 3, that is if x is equal to 3, we are going to get into bracket 3, then minus 6 all over 2 plus 3 plus 1. Simplifying, we have 2 times 3, which gives us a 6. So 6 minus 6 over 4. 6 minus 6 then gives us a 0 over 4. 0 over any number is still 0. And that is just it. This is how we find the zeros of an algebraic fraction. The third one is for you. Solve it and let me know what value of x makes that function 0. Now let's go to the undefined term. So when it comes to an algebraic fraction, when we say an algebraic fraction is undefined, then what we simply mean is the denominator is 0. If you have any fraction at all, if you have a over b, the denominator should never be 0. If the denominator becomes 0, then you are going to get a over 0. And you know, in mathematics, we don't do this. We say it is infinity or undefined. Hence, if you are given a function or an algebraic fraction, you want to look for the values of the variable that makes it undefined. Let's look at how we are going to do that. So for examples here, we have find the value of x for which the following algebraic fractions are undefined. Let's start with the first one. So we have 5 over x. Now, we should know that if you want your algebraic fraction to be undefined, then the denominator has to be 0. So we start by saying for undefined, then it simply implies that our denominator, in this case, our denominator is just x. So x is equal to 0. And that is all. There is nothing else to solve. For the second one, on the other hand, we have x plus 4 over x minus 1. So you say for undefined, then it simply implies that our denominator, which is x minus 1, would be equal to 0. If that is the case, then you come and make x the subject. So if x minus 1 is equal to 0, solving further, it simply implies x is equal to the negative 1 moves to the other side to become a 0 plus 1. You know 0 plus 1 gives us a 1. You see, so it therefore, we conclude by saying therefore our function x plus 4 is undefined if x is equal to 1. Then let's look at the last one. So we have 3 over x squared minus 4. So we come again and say for undefined, it implies that our x squared minus 4 should be equal to 0. That is the denominator we have here should be equal to 0. Hence, if x squared minus 4 is equal to 0, how do we solve it? X squared minus 4 can then be written as x minus 2. That is applying the difference of 2 squares. So x minus 2 and then x plus 2 being equal to 0. Solving further, you have x minus 2. You have to equate each bracket towards 0. So equating the first bracket to 0, you have x minus 2 being equal to 0. Hence, x is equal to 2. For the second bracket, we have x plus 2 being equal to 0. Hence, x equals negative 2. It simply implies that the values of x that makes this function undefined is either x equals 2 or x equals negative 2. Hence, if you are substituting, there is no need you put this value here. We say the function is discontinuous on x equals what? 2 and then negative 2. X squared minus 4 equals 0 can also be solved as x squared is equal to 4. That is making x squared the subject. And hence, since it is x we want and not x squared, we are going to look for the square root of both sides. So we have the square root of x squared giving us x, and the square root of 4 gives us a positive and negative, that is plus or minus 2, which is the same as what you see over here. So basically, this is how we solve for the undefined and the zeros of function, specifically algebraic function. Let's combine these two and then solve for some functions. So for our first question, it says find the value of x for which x squared minus 5x all over x minus 5 is a, 0, and then b, undefined. Now, our function here is x squared minus 5x all over x minus 5. So let's take the first one. So for the zeros of this function, then it simply implies that we know for zeros, then it is the numerator we equate 0. So x squared minus 5x is equal to 0. So it's now left with us to solve for the value of x. X squared minus 5x equals 0. If you want to solve for x, we have to factorize the x out. So we have our x, then into bracket, x times what gives us our x squared, that is x. Then x times what gives us a negative 5x, that is a negative 5. And we equate that to what? 0. Solving for our zeros, we know if we have two factors whose product are equal to 0, then it's either the first one is equal to 0 or the second bracket is equal to 0. Hence, it implies that our x is equal to 0. That is equating the first bracket towards 0. Then for the second one, we have what? X minus 5. That is this second bracket. We are equating it also to 0. Making x the subject, we have x equals 0 plus 5. And we know 0 plus 5 gives us what? A 5. So therefore, the zeros of the function, or the zeros of this algebraic fraction, they are x equals 0 or x equals 5. As simple as that. But then when it comes to the undefined, we know our function once again is x squared minus 5x all over x minus 5. So we say for undefined, then it simply implies that our denominator, which is x minus 5, should be equal to 0. If our denominator x minus 5 is equal to 0, then we come and then solve for x. That is, make x the subject. So x minus 5 is equal to 0. And this is just a two-step solution. So our x is equal to what? 0 plus 5. And we know 0 plus 5 gives us what? A 5. So we say, therefore, the fraction is undefined when x is equal to 5. As simple as that. There are so many ways the questions can be asked. Take note, this is just a summation of all that we have done in algebra. If your factorization is good, your simplification is good, and then the change of subject is also all right, you are done with this topic. Because if you are given difference of two squares as the numerator, and then you want the zeros, all you need to do is to equate that numerator to 0. If you are given a quadratic as the denominator and you want the undefined term, you would want to what? Equate the denominator to 0 and then make x the subject. And with that, we have looked at how to use the almighty formula and then how to also use the method of factorization. On that note, I would end here and then give you some exercises so you try on your own. So here are some questions for you just to test your understanding of what we've done so far. You have to find the values of x for which the following is 0, then secondly, undefined. Now take note of the second one. There's no variable for the numerator, but yet you are also to find when it is 0. For the last one, that is vain, it says you have to, it says why is 0 over 0 considered indeterminate rather than just 0? In other words, why do we say it is undefined or infinity rather than just 0? Let's have beyond numbers where we learn maths the way. If there's any issue of concern, you can always let me know at the comment section. See you in our next lesson. Then bye for now.